Hey there. Welcome to Disaster Podcaster this week. Great to have you here. Welcome back if this is someplace you spend every week with us. And welcome for the first time if it is, in fact, the first time. My name is Clark Brown, and this is Disaster Podcaster, as you know because you tuned in. We are a podcast and video podcast, so we're available on two different formats, YouTube as well as on any of your favorite platforms, Spotify, Google, Apple, all the places where you can listen to podcasts across the internet while you're driving to jobs or while you're checking on things or something like that. So, but a lot of people like the video format because sometimes there's some on-screen visuals, which I'll try my best to mention if there are. And if there are ever downloads or resources available, you will see them in the description of the podcast. So this is part 2 of a series of 4 different episodes that we're going to have sequentially here releasing in December of 2022, the last 4 segments of our season 2 episodes for Disaster Podcaster. And the premise is, and it's nothing more than an opinionated series of almost lessons, if you will, or almost just talking points. Over the years, I have been doing this for a long time, and I've been coaching for quite a few years now. I have the distinct the distinct privilege to have interaction with a lot of restoration contractors through conferences, through my coaching, through friends, through Facebook groups and gatherings and my own associations or whatever it might be. Storms, I get to go to hurricanes. There's usually a lot of people there. And I have come across some of the winning and losing components or ingredients, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, of what a professional in this industry looks like. A professional, not only a professional company, but a person too. So these are going to be bundled together. They are nothing but my opinions. There are some facts, of course. I probably will have left a lot of things out because I only have so much time. And so I welcome you to chime in with some of your own input. And speaking of which, I would like to thank everyone that tuned into our first segment, part 1, which was last week. The link down below, you can make sure you check that out, of this series, which was technically accomplished. Having the technical know-how to actually do this job, be in this industry, call yourself a professional, you need to know what you're doing. So we went through that. There was a lot of the certifications, a lot of the laws, things like that you should have and possess to call yourself this. You don't sign up work that you don't know how to do effectively. There's just too much risk on this. And some other people chimed in with some great comments, and pretty much all the feedback I got from this series, I didn't know if this series was going to work out. And I'll tell you why. Whenever you're doing anything for the public, a video or any kind of piece of content, you never know who's going to like what. There's so many different tastes and flavors and people that are wired different ways. It's really nerve-wracking. It takes a lot of diligence on my part or anyone that creates to just stick to what they know and do the best they can. I never know who's going to like what. Some people do not like anything that I have to say. Some people think that I'm a quack. A duck. That's what they mean, is a duck. But some people thought I hit a lot of the nails on the head. So that's how it's going to go with me. It's going to go with you. People that I got feedback from on this first one were in 2 camps. They liked it and they loved it. So every week I try to just find content, conversation starters, themes that will challenge people to improve, to have conversations and maybe take action in their own companies or with their own circle of influence with others, and take what I've said and run with it and add your own spin to it and your own additional to it. So that's all I'm trying to do here. I'm just trying to change this industry one stinking piece of whatever at a time. So this week on part 2, we want to talk about leadership and culture. So when we're talking about professional companies and professional individuals, there are qualities that fall into have some ability of leadership. I'm not going to say that a brand new WRT technician cannot be professional and has never actually had any leadership experience. I'm not saying that. But I'm talking about the 8% of this industry that I think is going to continue to change this industry, stand up and fight for it, has to possess leadership qualities as a company and as the individuals that run it. And then I put culture in there as well, just because I think those two are so close together. So I want to talk to you real quick on this quote from Simon Sinek when we start talking about leadership. Leadership is not about being in charge. Leadership is about taking care of those in your charge. What he's saying here is leadership is not about being a boss. I've got some notes here about there are lots of bosses in this world, in this industry, everywhere. Everyone has a boss. Being a boss, pushing production, telling people what to do, showing people how to turn a bolt or how to dry something. Those are part of being a supervisor and being a boss. That's not the same thing as being a leader. If you've got first-time managers in your company, I think this segment that we're about to produce will probably very, 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 very important for that person to listen to or to watch, because you don't need just another person that can tell other people what to do. What you need is another leader that can create more leaders. You, as the top rung of the company or wherever you are in your company, the more people you have below you that are qualified and that are energized and passionate and creative and feel like they're actually contributing to something, makes your job easier. Now, I know the struggle is, how do I create that? And we can talk about that as we go. But I just wanted to talk about Simon Sinek. He said it's not about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. Those people that work for you are your responsibility. Safety, of course. They should be better every single day than they were yesterday. You're responsible while they're there. It's kind of like your children at school. The children are supposed to go to become smarter and be more well-developed within the social setting. You're still their parent, but the teachers have an obligation and responsibility in leadership. And that's what you'd have as well for those that work for you. You can't just expect to have people come work for you, tell them what to do, and they're just going to do it, and you call yourself a leader. Part of what I've said here is that I think leadership coaching, leadership discussions, and content is vastly, vastly overused in this world now. I think it's become a keyword and a buzzword for a lot of people. It's not complicated. It doesn't have to be digested. You've got to find out, who do you need to be that you needed when you were coming up? Who created you? Who helped you become a leader, a well-designed restoration professional? Who helped you? What did that person do? What skill sets, characteristics did that person possess to help you become better? Everyone came from somewhere, and someone helped us along the way. A bunch of someone's helped us along the way. So what did that look like for you? That's who you need to be. We have a lot of bad leadership. Now, to add to that, before I get into the meat of this podcast, I think a lot of times we will advance or promote people that are technically know what they're doing, but they're lacking on the leadership side, and they aren't matching. They don't really know what your culture is. Here's the big reason. Too many people, too many owners, too many business CEOs, managers, upper-level management, middle management aren't good at expressing what the missions and values are, what the culture should be, so therefore no one really knows what they're trying to achieve. We're all being watched and looked upon as how to become something else. So today I want to talk about companies that I think would be considered professional in the areas of leadership and culture, and these are going to be some of the things that I think will be the framework for that. Okay, so write these down. I'll have these in the description. Literally just consume them. They're just some conversation starters. It's going to be 6 different areas. 6 different areas. The first one is I'd like to start where your employees start. I think a good professional firm should have great employee onboarding. That's not just, hey, welcome to the company. I want to talk about that. First off, I'd like to talk about beginning expectations. What is the role that you need that person in? What do they need to do to win? What are they accountable for? What are you expecting of them? Have that spelled out before you hire someone. Don't do it around the person. Do it around the role. Because if you do it around the person, you will always modify that description based on the strengths and weaknesses of a person. And what you'll do is you'll leave some things that aren't in there because you pulled them out, but no one else absorbed them. And you know who's going to have to do those? You, or no one at all. And it ends up looking like, errors and making a real mess of things. So beginning with the expectations. Who am I hiring? What do I need them for? What's the value of this person? It's a hard one to talk about. What do I need them to produce for an ROI so that I can pay them well? Not just I need a person at $17.50 an hour and I'll have them do whatever. How do you quantify what that person, man, woman, whatever, what they do? How do you quantify what they produce an hour, a day, a week, a quarter, and a year to justify and then move into how they get to grow? So that's a professional. Employee onboarding, I think that you should have an entire platform, an entire program on employee onboarding. It's very, very deep, very, very detailed. I think that it should be a really, really big deal when someone comes to work for your company, when they're onboarded. It is a big deal for you because it's a huge investment, but it's also a big deal for them. They're taking a risk. They're jumping into something that maybe they've never done before. So I want you to create a warm welcome for that person. I want their first day, and you have already laid the groundwork, have a really, really warm welcome for these people. Not a fake, hey, everybody, welcome Jesse to the team. I will say already have a lot of their personal information, what they're about, their history a little bit. Create an environment where people are already starting to bond together, even on day one. You want someone to go home after their first day at work and tell their wife, husband, kids, parents, best friend, wow, my first day was good. The next one is the actual first day of onboarding. I think you should have 1 to 2 days of an onboarding agenda before anyone goes to the field and is assigned the work to do. And that's up to you what that looks like. But all the things, you now have a person who's not quite ready to go jump into a crawl space or to handle a sewage or a fire. They're not ready for that yet. They need to figure out how the company operates, what this stands for, what happens when this happens, and how do we do this and how do we do that. A couple of days of onboarding, doing that warm welcome, introducing them to people, getting them to feel comfortable, letting them ask you questions. That's a great leadership, and that creates a great culture. I think in far as professional companies for employee onboarding, I think you should have, when someone starts, there should be a predetermined 30, 60, and 90-day plan. What does that first 30, 60, and 90 look like? And this is per position. It's not the same for the office admin or as an estimator as it might be for a lead tech or a logistics manager or anyone, a CFO. But you need to have that plan. It's not show up, see how you do, and let's just see what works and what cookie crumbles. Spend some time before you hire people and think about what that looks like. And then lastly, when you're onboarding employees, I really love when companies adopt some type of education around personality profiles. I particularly coach on DISC assessments. They're very inexpensive. They have a huge amount of benefit from learning, but also do a DISC assessment on who's coming aboard to see how they think and how they're wired. If they're a good fit for the position that you're looking for. I don't want you to hire based on this person is loco, cuckoo, crazy. What we're looking for is the right people in the right seats. You might find out that someone that you need to be very customer centric is not really wired to be super social, and working with customers is not what they want to do. So you're going to set them and your company both up for failure, and it's not going to last very long. So I like to get around disc assessments. The next area that I think leadership and culture is growth. Growth of your company. You should be growth minded. CEOs should particularly be visionaries, people that see a vision, people that see the future and where we're going and how what we're doing is going to change that future for the company, for the individuals, for the client. So we need to have a growth mindset. When people come aboard into your company and they're looking to work for a leader or for a great manager, they need to know about their growth. What does their future look like? How are they going to be better? How are they going to become something else? We've kind of made a promise that we have this opportunity. Well, what is that opportunity? Professionally and personally. So we're talking professional and personal growth here. Then what are the measurable advancements? What are the levels? I have a set of tech levels for technicians, water, fire, mold, construction, whatever. Tech levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, and in some cases 5. But people can see, how do I advance? How is it measurable? Don't just say, hey, come in here, do a really good job, 6 months, give you a raise, maybe give you a promotion. Based on what? I mean, that's very, very, very vague. And it's a big area that you could say, well, you didn't quite hit the mark. The person says, I didn't know what the mark was. I tried to hit it, but I didn't. So you want to get really, really clear and then push people. You'll find out really, really quick that someone's either not interested or you'll identify what their skill set, the emptiness is, where you'll learn quickly where the skill sets fall short and give you an idea where you need to work on, and you or your team and your trainer needs to up their level. Tech levels is a really good way to do that. So make sure you've got measurable advancements for people. And then promotions. People leave when they can't grow. It doesn't have to be a huge raise. It doesn't have to be something. But if someone is in your company really doing great work, showing up, excels, training other people, taking ownership, doing what other people won't do, find a promotion. People like to advance. Doesn't mean they're going to become a new manager. It means, you're now a lead tech. Now you're a senior lead tech, a level 5 lead tech. Maybe I've got a small little task here. I want you to be a trainer for other people. Maybe I'm going to give you some different perks for something else, but be good with promotions. But there's a belief that if you over promote people, they get lazy. No, they get lazy when you're not holding them accountable and you allow them to get lazy. You promote people and tell them with this promotion will come more responsibility, but I think you're going to really, really do it well here. That's good leadership. That's good culture. The next area of leadership is in employee retention. It's a big category. It's what we all need to really be working on right now because it's getting harder and harder. Screw it. It's getting impossible. No, it's not impossible. It's getting very difficult to find great people who want to work in a skilled blue-collar trades industry. But we need to get our retention down. So everything that I've talked about before is getting you to this point, and they've been working for you. We need to have low turnover. High turnover rate in your company is going to make other people leave. You may have done nothing wrong and their job is fine, but they feel like they work somewhere that there is an eternal revolving door. And what that says is there's probably some things here that I'm not seeing, that this isn't a great place to work. I don't know why. I don't know why they're leaving. Or they do know why people are leaving. People aren't held accountable. They're not treated the same. My wife worked at a company. She did a great job. The bosses loved her. But my God, the turnover was so high for everyone else that made more than she did. She did not make that much money. And she would get all of their stuff put on her plate because she showed up all the time. And she's not there anymore. So think about that. And I already mentioned it. You need to get really good at hiring. You think you're good? Then everybody that works for you should be coming in as a B+ player and make them to an A. But if you've got people not showing up, you just need to remember that you hired those people. Hire well. Don't hire out of an instant, oh my gosh, I'm shorthanded, because you'll end up not getting the right person. Hire well, follow best practices on recruiting and talent acquisition, and I promise you, you will be among the top in your market. As far as employee retention, it just continues to communicate well, and that's I have an exercise that I use called Voice of the Employee, and this is a questionnaire survey that everyone in the company takes. You can do this quarterly, you can do it twice a year, once a year, but it's their voice. It's giving them an opportunity, and these are some open questions that are very difficult to read. They can be answered anonymously or non. You don't need to know who's saying them. What you want to know is what's the difference between what's in my head of how happy this staff is, how we're doing as a company with leadership and culture, and actually how they are. This Voice of the Employee does a phenomenal job of that. So I think you should probably look that up online. I have that in our coaching that we deploy, and it always, always, always creates so much clarity, a huge breath of fresh air once you address it, meet with all of your team together and individually and work these things out and put together these steps to improve that. Your turnover will slow down. People that might have been close to leaving will give you a shot, and let's get it figured out. Because I don't think you're trying to run people off. I think you're just in the day-to-day business, and these things are an afterthought sometimes. And then the last one is truly have an open door policy. I can't tell you how many people claim they have an open door policy, but they really don't. It means they're not approachable. Sometimes the staff will come to an owner, a manager, a supervisor, and have a complaint, have another idea, and it's met with defensiveness. It's met with redirection, meaning, before we talk about that, this is me role-playing here. Before we talk about this new idea, let's talk about all the things you're doing wrong. You think that person's ever going to come to you with a new idea again? You should already be working on the things that are going wrong, but in a constructive way. Guys and gals, this is why this is only 8% of our industry that's really checking these boxes, all of them. So it's hard. I'm not saying this is easy. You've got to be aware that your primary job is this. It's not you as the owner being the estimator, being the technician, being the everything, the customer service. You can't do these things if you're doing all those things. So you've got to delegate. The next one is accountability. It's a huge one. I've got here leadership that doesn't blame, they train. They don't blame people for doing things wrong. They blame themselves for not showing people how to do it right. Or they blame themselves for letting people stick around after they've been trained and they're not doing it well. So accountability needs to be very, very visible and transparent. When we team up, when we at Restoration Advisors will go to a site, a company, and spend a couple of days with your team, we help create an accountability chart with you and with your team. It always goes the same way. There's a lot of people. It's a breath of fresh air, but it exposes a lot of people's weaknesses or terrible reputations or terrible attitudes. And some people don't make the cut. You do need them to be accountable, but once they're made to be accountable, this is no longer the place they want to work. And that can upset some owners sometimes when you're already short-handed. But I can tell you, having the right people in your company, they will pick up the slack and do the work for that person that's out of there. So I'm really, really big on visible and transparent and be unwavering. This is what you're accountable to do. This is what you're responsible for. This is what you take ownership of. And we all agreed on this. So there's no surprises. When I'm talking about accountability for people, it's really, really important, especially in a small business. You need to treat everyone equally, expect things equally, praise equally if you can. A lot of companies have family members working there, for friends, and nothing will sink a company quicker than unequal treatment of things. Again, if someone is not where they need to be and they're not accepting the accountability, then that's a coaching measure. If they just don't want to do it, then that's a termination measure. but everyone needs to be treated equally in a company. That's a professional company that any employee would say, we have great leadership. Everyone's treated equally. They're fair, but they're firm. And that's what you want, fair but firm. And then accountability is a company that learns from their lessons. When you have people that are not being held accountable and that gets corrected and they either stay and get better or they leave, let's learn from that. Let's just don't keep repeating that and wait and go through that pain over and over and over again. I see that happen a lot in companies is we aren't great at learning from our lessons. It's Groundhog Day. We keep doing it over and over and over again. Next in leadership and in culture is having a great foundation in your company of reviews and performance evaluations. Again, kind of going back to the employee onboarding, is have expectations of when people will be reviewed. Actually schedule those. Victor comes aboard and Victor gets an email, and it's Google or Gmail, excuse me. Well, there's going to be a calendar that's associated with that only he has access to with management, or some kind of CRM software where everyone has their own schedule. Put down there the 30, 60, 90-day reviews. Have reviews of other managers that aren't in charge of that position. Do what we call skip level. Have other people, other perspectives, evaluate each other. They aren't always, hey, you're doing this wrong and you're trying to get a raise. People want to know is, how am I doing? Am I meeting the bar? Where is the bar? So have a really good company that actually has that in place and go so far as put those on the calendar so that, 2 days before there's a reminder. You've got to be present. You've got to kind of clear your schedule. You're going to sit down in the office. You're going to go have coffee, go out to lunch, whatever that looks like. And you're going to actually sit down and have a formal review, an evaluation, discuss performance, and then what we can do to make the areas that are doing well shine. The ones that aren't doing well, where can we get better for those? Okay? So, and then the next to last one is a scorecard. I have a great spreadsheet that I would share with anyone that wants to reach out on how you can score people on their performance and on their, company performance, ability to do things, picking up things. There needs to be a score. The mind works in a mathematical way generally because that's how we're taught. But if you see that you're a 3 out of 5 and you're trying to get to a 4, well, that's something tangible. I can set a goal around that. We can actually revisit this in the future and see that now I'm a 4.5 and I was 3 before. If you don't have a scorecard, you're just going with, you were better before, you're better now than you were then, but I don't know how much better, just a little bit better. No, people want to say, I want to smash it. I want to kill it. I want to be a 5. Have a scorecard for that. Professional, tight companies, great systems. These people are the ones that stay and help you build a big, luscious, incredible company. And then the last one, as far as reviews, is having a culture around training. You should always be training. Always, always, always. I love 2 trainings a week, two mornings where you clear the calls for the first hour, 30 minutes, but only have these if they are truly, truly, truly valuable. I don't like meetings that don't get anywhere because that's a waste of money. It's a waste of time, and everyone's bored. And not all training applies to all people. This could be the office. This could be the field. This could be business development. It could be who knows. But have a training of culture and have a couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months in advance on a calendar. Have a big calendar situation set up. Have a training calendar so they know what's coming up. So people actually could get ready for, I see in 2 weeks we're talking about this. Well, I actually have some ideas around that. Well, you as the owner, as a leader, say, well, hey, I'd love you to participate in the training with me. Bring your ideas to me a week before, and we'll see how they get implemented in. Have a culture where people say every single week, they go home and tell their parents, their friends, their spouse, their cousins, and I love my job. Every week we're training on something, and they're preparing me to be an all-star in this field. That's what you want. That's a leadership company. And then the last segment for what I think makes a really good leader and a real professional company with culture is we hear it all the time, and we accuse millennials of wanting a work-life balance. We're guilty of it too. We get burnt out. By the time you notice someone's burned out, it's too late. You need to have a real work-life balance plan in your company, how to prevent that as much as possible. We are in a physical, demanding, stressful industry. There's no denying that. Can't get around that. I'm not talking about being strong enough to do it. People should know that when they come into it. If they aren't up for this industry, they shouldn't be working there in the first place. But if they are, and we're shorthanded, we can't work people to the bone. So under work-life balance for your team, I like a phrase called ask the right questions. Asking your team, walking up, saying, hey, how are you doing? Anything I can do to help you? You feel like you're getting things done? Are you good? If someone says, oh my gosh, I'm burned out, and they're working 28 hours this week and they've missed 3 days, that's probably not something that's going to be really striking a good conversation. It's probably a different conversation. But if you do know that you've got someone that's been on call and that has really just been grinding it out, it's like, exhaustion. It's like dehydration. By the time you see it, it's too late. You need to ask the right questions, and often you need to get with your team every day. Hey, how you doing? How's it going? How's the truck running? How's the job going? Ask the right questions. How's your family? You had an anniversary. How's that going? Ask the right questions, but really build up a persona, and don't let it be a persona. I want this to be authentic, a culture of we care about you more than this job. Okay? People aren't robots. Don't treat them like robots. People are, they don't always like to tell you they can't do something. So you have to read between the lines. You have to be a good leader and have a good sense of these things. You can see it in mistakes. You can have other managers or other staff saying, person's really getting snippy, had a real attitude. It's probably a reason for that. It's probably not just because they're a jerk, but if you go ask them, say, hey, it looks like I had a rough day. Had some teammates kind of tell me you're a little short-tempered. What do you need? I need a day off, but I can't afford to be. Come up with a resolution for that. Don't let people be robots and just work because they need the money. They may have bad spending habits, but they still need the money. What do you do for just, take a couple extra hours. Come in late tomorrow. That can mean a lot for someone. Then lastly, promote fun and family. Promote people take off early if you know it's their anniversary or their birthday. If you overhear your staff has someone coming into town, promote that you would like them to take some extra time. Honestly, how about pay for it? How about say, you know what, I'd like to treat you and your family to bowling tonight. Your whole team, do something fun. Have bowling. I've got a good friend in Florida. They play Golden Tee. The whole team. They play Golden Tee, and they promote that fun. They look forward to that. They get away from the office. They go somewhere, and they talk about just funny stuff. They just have a good time. Promote that. These aren't everything in leadership. These are just some things that I think is missing in a lot of today's companies. I'm hearing from people that leave jobs that are really good at what they do because their companies are just not run well with leadership. And it's not always intentional. It usually is not from the owner trying not to be a good leader, not trying to be a jerk, but this is an incredibly different business to operate in with the insurance fight and getting paid and the ongoings of the last few years. It's been very, very difficult. So I'd like you to give your managers a little bit of grace and mercy as well and help them and communicate with them. They aren't mind readers, and they're trying to make the company run. Sometimes they just lose sight of what's right in front of them. So I would say this goes both ways. I hope you could take a couple of nuggets away from this session. I'm trying to point out and create a model of a really good firm, of a really good person that's a professional in our industry. So part one was the technically accomplished, those that are technically know what they're doing. Now we did leadership. Next week, we're going to have a whole new session, and we're going to continue on this, and I hope you're really enjoying it. Thanks for tuning in. You can watch this on YouTube. You can catch this on your favorite podcast channel. You can reach out to us at Restoration Advisors and give us an idea of what you thought. Leave a comment on YouTube or in your platform, and give us some color to this. Add some things that you think I left off. I purposely left a lot of things off because I would like to create some conversations. I hope you had a great time listening. We sure appreciate it, and we'll talk to you next week. Take care.